Call from the Wisps, Part 2. He set the autosailor on a path to try and triangulate the source. As he approached it, he saw that it wasn't a beacon as such, but more like a probe or a pod with a beacon attached to it. But it didn't look like any of the robot probe designs of the Elven Union, and they were the only probe users in the outer system. Even research groups from the inner system used Elven probes for any research out here. Maybe it was a new prototype? Although it did look vaguely familiar from something or somewhere else. Maybe something he'd seen in a museum. He brought it on board and then repressurized the scoop holes before going in to look at it more closely. The inscription format on the casing was semi-familiar, but not enough for easy interpretation. Easy enough for the translation app, though. Wait a minute, Centauri. The Whispering Wisps. It was a message pod from the Wisps of Centauri. That was the museum piece he'd been reminded of. It had been over a century since the last one of these. That was why they were called the Whispering Wisps, because since the original colony ship left, the only evidence of their continued survival was these occasional message pods. Interstellar transport technology hadn't yet developed enough for more than that. This was only the fourth message pod, so it might be quite valuable. The asteroid industries wouldn't care for it. They were industry only. Some of the Elven universities might be keen for it, but how much budget did they have? He'd probably get the best price from the Martian Information Trading and Technological Expansion Northern Society. No one knew why the Northern was still left in there now that they had campuses and trade offices all over Mars, not just in the old Northern expansion city that they had started in. He could use some connections through his father Baron, and didn't Uncle Belligand used to work there? They were even more powerful in the info trade than the Dwarven Information Academies. Yes, Mittens would be the best to take the pod to. It would be a long trip though. He adjusted the solar sails to slow his orbit of the sun to allow his craft to fall inwards. After that, the sails wouldn't be of much use for the inward journey, except for braking and a little bit of steering. This far out, he'd need to use the engine as well for some initial acceleration. But this far out, an engine burn probably wouldn't be seen. There would be other groups and authorities that would try to tax or seize his find, but technically their authority only extended to 1.5 light seconds beyond the orbit of the furthest moon from their planet. That wouldn't stop them from trying though. He could argue his way out of such an encounter if he had to, but he'd prefer not to. Thank you for listening. That was part 2 of the reading of Call from the Wisps from the ebook Unfinished Worlds on the Kobo store.